The group admin has a top secret resource to share, and the group members are thirsty for it. But the admin's upload speed is capped at only 11 MB per second. Right now, there are 500 members waiting to download. This means each person only gets a measly 22 KB per second of bandwidth. If the members want a faster upload speed, the admin would have to pay out of pocket for a massive bandwidth upgrade. Plus, if the fiber cable accidentally gets cut by someone, then the poor members can't use it tonight. And BitTorrent was created to solve these pain points. In the summer of 2001, BitTorrent inventor Bencode collected some free pornography to lure a bunch of Linux geeks into testing BitTorrent. Unsurprisingly, the strategy worked. That's why I use that example at the beginning, because that's literally how the inventor marketed it. If we look at the BitTorrent process from the macro level, it consists of the file, the torrent, the tracker, and the PS. But let's start with the file. When a user wants to share the file, they create a torrent file from the original data. The user is called the seeder. When seeding begins, they send identification info to the tracker. The tracker itself doesn't store any of the actual file data, it just creates a list for every unique info it recognizes. This list records everyone who is currently uploading or downloading that specific file. Here is an example of what that data look like. When a client gets this info, they can connect to the corresponding seeder. So everyone who gets the torrent file needs to connect to the tracker first. This downloader have a specific name, peer. As long as the PS torrent client connects to the tracker, they get a map of the file distribution across the whole network. They know who is connected and who to ask for the file they need. In this way, a peer can find the second, third, or nth person who gets the file. And all the peers can swap the pieces they have with each other. Okay, so that's the general overview. Now that we've seen the big picture, let's go back to how the files are handled. The BitTorrent protocol splits the file into many small pieces. Each piece has a fixed size like 256 KB or 1 MB. This is user-definable. This method of trunking means we don't need to worry about the total file size. The seeder just needs to have all the pieces ready, even if he can't send them to everyone personally. As long as he distributes all the pieces to a few peers, everyone else can quickly pass the data amongst themselves. This model is called peer-to-peer, or what we commonly know as P2P downloading. Next, the BitTorrent protocol uses the SHA-1 hash algorithm to ensure the downloaded pieces haven't been tampered with. Simply put, a hash algorithm generates a very short identity card for the data. If the original file changes even a tiny bit, the generated ID is completely different. The hash value for every single piece is stored inside the torrent file at the moment the torrent is created. So the torrent file you download first will let you obtain the entire file completely and without any alterations. Alright, let's dive deeper into this file. This is the formatted info of the torrent file. Essentially, a torrent file is a dictionary. That's a computer science term referring to a key-value pair structure. Just like a real dictionary, the word is a key and the definition is a value. You probably heard me say formatted earlier. That's because torrent file use bencode. It's an encoding method designed to better handle data errors. But practically, it's still just a dictionary. If we look at the raw, unformatted information, it looks like this. The torrent file records two main parts. Part 1 records the tracker URL, tracker list, comments, the creation tools, and the creation timestamp. As long as the PS can contact the specified tracker, they can find the seeder. Part 2 stores the information about the shared files, including size and path. The path is there to maintain the floater structure. The size is displayed in bytes. For example, the file is about 5.85 GB. The next two items show the piece information. It matches what we discussed earlier. Piece length defines the size of each chunk. It's 256 KB or 1 MB. For example, this torrent uses a piece length of 256 KB. The length must be a power of 2 and at least 16 kilobit. The largest section is the hash values for every single piece in binary format, so it just looks like gibberish text. Since hashing is time consuming, if your CPU is weak and you are putting many large files into one torrent, the creation can be very slow because it has to calculate the hash for every single piece. So how does the BitTorrent protocol handle the download? BitTorrent uses the TCP protocol. TCP has a mechanism called slow start. It prevents blowing up the router with a sudden data spike. Slow start exponentially increases the data transmission volume until it hits the network maximum capacity. This is why your download speed ramped up from 0 kilobit to max speed gradually. If we send 64 data package to a computer all at once, your computer might not be able to handle that load instantly. This will likely lead to packet loss. So to avoid this, the TCP protocol increases the packet volume exponentially from the start until it reaches a set threshold. This process is slower than blasting everything at once, hence the name slow start. Once the slow start phase ends, it begins probing upward until the connection can't take it anymore. If connection loss or packet drops occur during this process, it has to go back to slow start and begin from 1 again. This works for normal downloads, since a server is continuously sending you data. But for BitTorrent downloads, this is not ideal, because a peer might stop sending you data for various reasons, leaving you stuck in the slow start loop forever. To address this, the BitTorrent protocol focuses on the data package to ensure constant transmission. Generally speaking, BitTorrent takes those large 256 kilobit or 1 megabyte pieces and slices them further into 16 kilobit blockers to ensure continuous data transfer. When downloading new blocker, a new request is sent. The client will download 5 to 10 blocks simultaneously to make sure connection doesn't drop. This requires the next piece to be detrimented as soon as possible. But here's the problem. For a file with hundreds or thousands of pieces, which piece should we download first? You might think, it's just random, but there is actually a method to the madness. For any file on the BitTorrent network, certain pieces will be more common due to peer selection. Cohen's idea was to first download the pieces nobody else has, the rare pieces, by downloading rare pieces and then uploading them to make them less rare. The goal is to ensure all pieces flow completely through the network. Okay, let's go back to our opening scenario. Simply put, the group admin is the peer who starts with all the pieces. Naturally, this includes the rare pieces. Let's say the admin is holding on to the last 4 rare pieces. When the admin connects with the members will prioritize downloading the pieces that none of the other members have. This way, members can still download files completely even after the admin fries his computer. But this brings up a critical issue. By the time you hear the news and go to download, the admin's computer has likely hit its upload limit. It's hard to squeeze out any bandwidth for you. If you try to get their rare pieces from the admin now, you'll be waiting for an eternity. So, in the earlier stages, you get random pieces quickly from other peers. This way, even while you wait for the rare stuff, you have goods in hand to trade with others. Through these 2 phases, you eventually download the vast majority of pieces. Now you arrive at what we call the 99% start phrase. At this point, the client gets desperate. It sends a request to everyone simultaneously begging for that final piece. Once successfully downloaded from someone, it will notify all other peers, I no longer need it. That's the entire process. These 3 processes are called random first piece, rarest first, and endgame mode. It starts with the random first piece, switches to rarest first, and finally use the endgame model until all pieces are downloaded. But this model relies on a premise that everyone is a good peer who uploads and shares. But what about the leechers who only download and never upload? This brings us to a BitTorrent protocol strategy called Tit-for-Tat. This strategy comes from game theory. The essence is an eye for an eye. In game theory, specifically regarding repeated games, in the first round you choose to cooperate. In every subsequent round, you simply mimic your opponent's previous move. Political scientist Robert Axelrod mentioned in his book The Evaluation of Cooperation that is a highly effective strategy. Okay, let me explain. At the very beginning, we adopt an optimistic attitude. We assume all peers are good people, and we trust that all peers think we are good people too. Under this premise, we happily upload the data to everyone. After a while, we figure out which peers are good and which ones are leechers. Then we give them a taste of their own medicine. We send data to the peers who sent us data, But for those who taking without giving yet still want our data, we cut them off. In the BitTorrent protocol, this is called choking. Bandwidth received can then be given to a good peers. Of course, it doesn't mean they are on the backlist forever. We unconditionally give the leechers a chance. We randomly select a choked peer and unchoke them to let them download. Then we judge them based on their performance. If everyone executes this strategy, the network approaches a state known as Pareto Efficiency. The more upload bandwidth you contribute, the more download bandwidth others provide you. Once you get giddy and reduce or stop uploading, everyone else will lower the upload speed to you accordingly. So all peers become willing to contribute bandwidth in exchange for faster downloads. If any peer unilaterally changes this strategy, it only makes things worse for themselves, so a rational peer will choose to cooperate. Of course, once a peer becomes a seeder with a profile, they don't need anything in return. In the beginning, the seeder chooses the top 3 peers who are interested in the file and have high upload rates. At the same time, it performs an optimistic unchoke. It randomly gives a peer a chance to download data. Then it evaluates every 10 seconds. The seeder re-rank all peers based on the last unchoke time. Peers who recently got a chance to download are prioritized and kept in the unchoke state. Specifically, there is a 30-second circle. For the first 20 seconds, the seeder solves a top 3 peers and randomly selects a new peer as the first unchoke one. That's the optimistic unchoke. In the last 10 seconds, the seeder looks at the queue and selects the top 4 most recently unchoked peers to continue serving. If that new peer is performing well, their last unchoke time will definitely be the freshest, so they become an established peer and can continue downloading. Otherwise, they can bump for the next person. This process repeats in a loop. Peers are rotated based on the circle. In this process, the leechers aren't activated punished, but they cannot monopolize the seeder's resources for long. So you have probably noticed the most important structure in the BitTorrent network is the tracker. After all, everyone relies on the tracker to discover other peers. If the tracker gets taken down, doesn't the whole BitTorrent network get paralyzed? Exactly. Back in the day, the most famous torrent site, the Pirate Bay, sufficient conflict from US and European authorities cracking down on their trackers. And so, the BitTorrent protocol introduced a new format called magnet links. This new format, combined with another magical mechanism, basically frees us from dependency on trackers. But that involves another complex technology, which I'll explain in the next video. Okay, that's all for this video. Making videos isn't easy, so please smash that like button. If this video helped you, don't forget to subscribe for more hardcore knowledge. I'm Lyon, see you in the next one.